Hi. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. We are live.
I'm
Uh,
alive!
I'm alive. More and more every day.
Truly.
Yeah.
I
So
have this
I'm here.
conversation about X-Men, like three X-Men alive in the morning, talking about bodies and the earth. How does it get any better
Let's
than
get
this,
better than
really?
that. Totally. Yeah. So we are here. So the lovely Emanuela, I'm like, StreamYard always flips things around. She's somewhere, she's either here or here. It depends on your orientation.
I'm over here.
And talk about, yeah, a little dyslexia happening. Um, and Ava. These two ladies are we're going to be playing together next weekend in Seattle. We play together in Seattle a fair amount. At my lovely house on the lake, on Lake Washington, on our gorgeous lawn. And you can like run, and yeah, there you go. You can just run and like dive in the lake. And we are going to be doing 3 days of deliciousness. So a day of access consciousness body processes, they're earth-based body processes. So restoration of communion with the earth, and the elimination and eradication of microbiotic desertification, et cetera, et cetera. And then a 2-day Xmen class, followed by another body class at the very end, and a party and boating and canoeing and stand-up paddling and cocktails and just so much fun. Yeah, it's going to be horrible, really awful. End of July is a terrible time in Seattle.
I know that's what I really wanted to say is, oh my gosh, the heat wave that's going on in the rest of the world, like Seattle doesn't really have that, at least not yet. Like we are not even 80 degrees most days. Notice my sweater.
I like the pristine blue lakes here. There's something when I first moved to Seattle, like there was something about earth and communing with the earth and how loud the nature is here.
Yeah.
That, me, the X-Men, and my body, the X-Men humanoid body, got to receive so dynamically and so different. So I truly wonder, like, who would like to have some of that receiving, some of that melting, literally.
Yeah. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about this, because to me, this whole thing about X-Men bodies and the earth is just such a, like, it's an energy that you can, if you're aware of energy, even if you're not aware of energy or you don't think you are, you probably are. And really get a sense of like of that world. And so X-Men, for people who aren't familiar with that term, are like the seekers of the world, people who are different, people who their brains function differently. They see the world differently. They perceive the world differently. They receive the world differently. And really, as we say in Access Consciousness, the evolution of the species, and to something different. And, it is time for something different in the world. I can't imagine that anybody would not agree.
Or at least not be aware that things need to change.
Yes, exactly. And so I love this thing about the evolution, being the evolution of the species as an X-Men, and what our bodies have to do with that, and how our bodies participate in that, and the earth and all of that. It's just like, wow, amazing.
It's a yummy deliciousness to even tap into it.
Yeah.
And imagine 3 days of that with fellow seekers and travelers and wanderers.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. And Ava, when were you, I think you left me a message or something. You were talking about your you were talking about I think it was yesterday when we were chatting, and it was so beautiful what you said about when you would like to kind of tap into the space of you tap into the earth.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, Heather and I were chatting about the class, about the invitation and the space and the possibility that it is. And I was just sharing with Heather how, so many times as an X-Men, one of the capacities we have is our awareness, which is our gift, which very few of us, if at all, have been educated in the first place, that, hey, you're aware, now how does that work? And so it's when you're in that space of awareness, you're aware of so many things. Sometimes, if there are times where I feel like there's a lot of noise going on, and it's like, oh, where am I? And so anytime I was sharing with Heather that anytime I'm in that space, I like tap into earth and like look at it as, and I learned this from Shannon. It's at some place called Earth, her big body.
Oh, that's cool. Shannon O'Hara, who's the Access Consciousness facilitator. Yeah.
Right. And really tap into the awareness of my big body and how that really just expands me and it just is it brings me to me. It brings me to what's my reality and what am I? Like, what is this for? And like that moment of congruence with yourself rather than being lost in the noise and just, letting yourself be thrown here and there, but actually becoming, rather than being a log in the river, be like the rock in the river and have your reality, have your presence. And like that's also, Heather, been one of the gifts I've received from all the body process classes I've done with you. I remember the last one being the refined judgment that we did in Seattle, and like
Yeah.
something about that entire thing of being in the nature, because your house is so beautiful. It's like literally you're cradled by the lake, by the earth, and then we're having these conversations and talking about your humanoid embodiment, which you, Heather, you're such a queen of. Like I don't know if I ever say this to you, but when I talk about you, I'm like, Heather, oh, she's a queen of embodiment, which I truly, it's like who you are. And so being in that space, being in that energy, being with nature, it's like truly what is available, what's possible, and let's play.
That's beautiful. Love it. Yeah, and the X-Men conversation is such a gift to that too, because it's so I always say this 2-day class is this exquisite kind of like relaxing rocket ship ride to getting out of judgment of you. And that's a lot of what this class does, is it just flips everything on its head. So it's the subtitle of the class is Disabilities or Abilities. And it's really about looking at every single thing that you think is wrong with you, about you, and literally flipping it, like, so that you get a sense of what's actually, because our greatest capacities are so different, like the way that we have different abilities and different capacities, it's so different than the rest of the world, that this world, like without these conversations, the world and then we just make it wrong, like all these different ways that we function. And like I was talking to a woman the other day, and she was saying oh, my sons and I were dancing in the kitchen, and my other son came in, and he had to go outside, like he couldn't handle it, and I was like, well, how aware was he of everybody who's ever danced to that song, past, present, and future, everybody, like anybody who's ever shaken their hips before, like there's so much.
Yeah.
That's what we don't understand, is that we get into this, because X-Men have such a immensity of awareness, like they're aware of absolutely everything. And like everybody in the world, past, present, and future, there's no sense of linearity or time for X-Men. And then we try to, like, some people try to process that through their bodies, and there's all these different things that we do to try to like make sense of it all and try to sort of be normal in the world. And it's like, you can't, like you can't be normal. And that's the beauty and the gift of you. And when you learn to flip that and go, oh, what am I aware of? Oh, I'm aware of everything, and have these conversations that other people don't, like, we haven't grown up with, and then how does your body play a part in that? And I love that, like the big body. It's like, what if you are as big as the earth, then perhaps there's like nothing, like perhaps you are as great as the earth as well, and have the capacities that the earth has, and you can have more of that as you have more presence with your body and presence with yourself.
Yeah. And it's like, as you were saying that, I was tapping into the amount of caring people have, which goes misplaced, or, which is met with abuse, sort of, and then it's suppressed. And like the humanoid reality and how much like tapping into the caring that Earth is, and like our big body is, and the caring we have, and what's a way to express as a being being different. So like that's the gift of the X-Men class that has been for me. And every time it's like it just keeps growing and exponentializing, and you're like, what else is available?
Yeah.
And I remember you and Emmanuel, you guys were chatting in the thread, in our Facebook Messenger thread, about parents, being a parent of X-Men kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys like to? The contribution that it is to have these tools when you have X-Men in your life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, huge. That's when I first heard of the X-Men conversation, I was like, well, that doesn't apply to me, because we say in Access, we say people who kids, like a lot of times people think of the X-Men as kids who have ADD, ADHD, OCD, or autism, and I was like, well, I'm not a kid. I don't have any of those things, and my kids don't either, and I realized, wait a minute, no, this is about a different way of functioning. This is about my brain functioning differently and my kids' brains functioning differently. And and the awareness that we don't realize that we are. And I started to see how much it actually did apply to me and dive into that conversation. And as I did, then I was like, wow, this also really applies to my kids. So, it could be that you have kids who have kind of struggled with those things or been diagnosed with those things. And it could also be that, you have kids that you think are sort of normal or whatever. I was like, I'm normal. What are you talking about? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm definitely not normal. But I would say just in general, it's like, whether it's about you or your children, there's this space that gets substantiated in that class, that you kind of can't, like, I guess you could undo it if you worked really hard against yourself, but it's like it literally gets substantiated as more of your reality, of this capacity to just turn everything on its head. Every wrongness of you, every wrongness that your kids might think is, what's wrong with it, what they might think is wrong with them or about them, what other people might think is wrong with your kids, what people might think is wrong with you as a parent. I mean, that's something that I've really looked at, is how, being an X-Men parent, and how, what does parenting look like for me? What's true for me and my kids? Not what the professionals say or tell me is healthy or right or whatever, but what do I know? What do my kids know? What do we know? What do they know? And just really being able to see everything as a strongness, everything as a greatness, and you just explode open the space of possibilities in your life, in your children's lives, in your family. in your business and with your body and everything, when you begin to see life from that, basically everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be perspective. So, yeah.
So I actually have something to say.
You're saying a lot energetically, so thank you.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about myself through Xmen, and one of the I would say the greatest contribution that the classes have ever been to me. Wow, I know. I grew up in the early 60s in grade school, where you got spanked in the hallway and stuck in the hallway if you couldn't sit still. And I didn't know my brain didn't function like everybody else's brain. So if you call on me for a question, I just freeze, because I really can't, I didn't realize I had this little loop to even express myself. The words just don't come. I could talk to you all day long about energy, but I can't really tell you how I did a math problem and put these things to, I just didn't function that way. So I grew up and was told many times that I was just stupid, and that was just, I didn't have a lot of even high expectations for myself, just based on what I thought was wrong with me and how I wasn't like everyone else. So even after the very first Xmen class, the greatest gift I got was that I knew there was no one else I could compare myself with. I had been looking all of my life to find someone like me, someone who could understand me, oh, I'm like that, I'm like this, I'm like this. I'm well into my 60s, and I'm still just kind of going, holy, I'm just this other thing that functions differently. And just there was something, I felt so good about myself after those I was so happy to be me.
Yeah.
That I didn't need to be anything else, and that I am still learning how different I am and how expanded my awareness actually is, and that I might not be able to put that into this world at all, but at least it's mine and it isn't wrong anymore. And then including the body in on that.
Yeah.
And allowing the body to expand into that, all the wrongness that I put into my body through all of that and what it's created in its world is just there is a magic to living. I am a magical creature that's all I got.
Well,
totally.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful.
And that's what I love about the weekend in Seattle, because it's technically there are 3 different set of classes that you can also individually take, and are very welcome to just the full day class that we have for the body processes with earth, communing with the earth, literally on the earth by the lakeside, and then followed by the 2-day Xmen class. And then on the last day of the Xmen class evening, we have another kind of a body process party to really, really, really invite our bodies and beings into the change and the choices that we're making, and all the ways in which that's changing our reality, changing the planet, changing Earth, and the futures that's creating. So it's there's so many of these different choices that you guys are so warmly invited to. And Emanuela and I both live in the area, Pacific Northwest, around the Seattle area. And we are if you guys have any questions, we're here for you.
And just truly, it's an invitation to be something different, to be everything that you are, and the celebration of living and being alive in your body, and bringing your body along on this amazing expansion of consciousness is vital.
Yeah. And I just have to add another player in the mix, my partner, Brian, who is just so wonderful. And he told me, yesterday, I'm ready to be your cabin boy for the weekend. He is as much of a hedonist Xmen creature as I am. He's a better cook. And
did we mention the cocktails in the equation yet?
Ryan does the food, I do the beverages,
Oh
so
my God.
So we will be, it will be there will be a lot of that as well, but just the hedonistic joy of living.
But no fun.
Yeah, no fun. You can just, if you get hot, we're going to actually have shade, but if you do get hot, you can run and just dive in the lake and in the middle of class and take out a stand-up paddle at lunch or a canoe. We have a boat. We can go on boat rides. It's going to be really, really like summer fun Xmen style.
So I love that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you ladies so much. I just adore you both. I'm so grateful. Thank you all for being here now and in the future watching. And how does it get better than this? If you'd like to come for any of the classes, like Ava said, you can come to 1 or 2 or 3. You're welcome to come to any of them or to all of them. The landing page with all the information is heathernichols.com/Seattle. And that will take you, it will give you there's some beautiful photos there too. And it's a beautiful page. So, yeah, let us know if you have any questions and maybe we'll see you there.
Can't wait to meet you.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.